As we move from the foundational thoughts of Augustine of Hippo into the structured legalism of the High Middle Ages, we encounter the monumental figure of Thomas Aquinas. In the Summa Theologica, Aquinas took the raw moral intuition of just war and refined it into a disciplined framework, three-pronged checklist that still echoes through the language of ethics, policy, and international law today. For Aquinas, the true exit from the cave of senseless violence was the application of reason. War, he believed, is not merely a political act, but a moral burden. To justify lifting that burden, a leader must demonstrate that three pillars are standing, not rhetorically, but philosophically. The first pillar is auctoritas principis, legitimate authority. War cannot be declared by private actors, factions, or individuals driven by personal grievance. Aquinas insisted that only those entrusted with the care of the common good possessed the mandate to wage war. This was a direct response to the chaos of feudal conflicts, where violence often operated without accountability. Authority, in this sense, is not power. It is responsibility formalized. In the modern world, this question becomes more complicated rather than less. Conflict can be initiated through proxies, algorithms, corporations, or decentralized networks. The battlefield is no longer only physical. Aquinas forces us to ask, when power is distributed, who carries moral authority? And can authority exist without clear accountability? The second pillar is causa justa, just cause. War cannot be pursued for expansion, prestige, economic gain, or emotional retaliation. It must respond to a real injustice, a wrong that requires defense, protection, or restoration. Without a specific moral injury, war collapses into organized violence without ethical grounding. This requirement introduces friction into political narratives. It demands clarity where propaganda prefers ambiguity. It forces societies to distinguish between threat and perception of threat, between defense and preemption, between necessity and convenience. Aquinas understood that the language of justice can be easily manipulated, which is precisely why the standard must remain demanding. The third pillar, and the most difficult, is intentio recta, right intention. This is the internal audit that no legal framework can fully verify. Even with legitimate authority and a defensible cause, a war becomes morally corrupted if its true motivation is domination, revenge, cruelty, or the pursuit of power disguised as justice. The intention must be ordered toward peace, not victory alone, but the restoration of a just order. Here, Aquinas shifts the discussion from institutions to conscience. Systems can authorize action. Only character can purify intention. He recognized that intelligence can justify almost anything. A clever mind can construct arguments for brutality. But virtue demands something stricter, honesty about motivation. This is why just war theory functions less like a permission slip and more like a restraint. It is not designed to make war easy to justify. It is designed to make justification heavy. Each pillar adds weight. Each requirement narrows the path. Viewed through the lens of today, these questions become sharper. Can a remote drone strike satisfy right intention when emotional distance increases? Does a cyber attack require sovereign authority if attribution is uncertain? Can automated systems operate within a framework built for human moral judgment? The technological shift does not erase Aquinas, it intensifies him. What emerges is a realization. Just war theory is fundamentally about limitation. It assumes that human beings are capable of rationalizing violence, and therefore moral philosophy must act as friction against that impulse. The framework exists to slow decisions down, to force reflection, to demand alignment between power, cause, and intention. Aquinas saw clearly that the smartest man can discover loopholes, reinterpret definitions, and shift responsibility. But the virtuous person asks a different question. Even if something can be justified, should it be? That question lives beyond law. It lives in character. This episode, then, is not only an analysis of medieval philosophy, It is an examination of moral thresholds. How much certainty is enough to justify force? How pure must intention be? Who bears responsibility when decisions are distributed across institutions and machines? By looking through Aquinas, we begin to see that the ethics of war is really the ethics of power under pressure. It reveals what societies value when stakes are high and time is short. It exposes whether peace is treated as a goal or merely an interval between conflicts. Just war theory does not promise moral comfort. It offers moral tension. It tells us that peace is the natural orientation of political life, and war is a deviation that demands explanation, not celebration. The sword is never neutral. It inherits the intention of the mind and the character of the hand that wields it. To follow Aquinas is to accept that ethical clarity does not eliminate tragedy, but it prevents indifference. It insists that even in conflict, moral reasoning must remain active, especially in conflict, because the real danger is not that war exists. The real danger is that justification becomes effortless. Aquinas built a framework to ensure it never does.